Bright Duty. Every student matters.
Hello dear students, welcome to another lecture. So in the last lecture we had started discussing the back exercises of the diary of a young girl and Frank. We discussed the multiple choice questions as well as the first 16 short questions. We'll proceed with question number 17. So what do you think? Do all people who share space and resources begin to hate each other? Why or why not? So now this question is more of your personal opinion. This has got nothing to do with the chapter because it is asking you about your opinion. So I personally believe that no, it is not so with every person. The case is not the same. Not everyone who lives together, who shares the resources, starts to fight with each other. No, this is not so. It only depends on the situation, I believe, and the circumstances that they are surrounded with. For example, if I take a reference from this, autobiography, these people, the residents of Secret Annex, had started having these frequent arguments because they were living under the same roof, they were sharing everything, but on the top of it, they were in a fear all the time. They were anxious, they were always scared of what might happen to them next. So because of that fear which was always there in their minds, I personally believe that the anxieties level kept on increasing all the time, and that is when the fights would start. What do you think Anne is feeling after reading her reaction to the conversation around her? So 3rd of February, everybody was talking about the adverse situation and the fact that the things were becoming difficult day by day. But what were Anne's feelings at that time? Now, Anne was obviously, was having an indifferent attitude. So, Anne had an indifferent attitude towards all the people of the house. Now, after having spent almost an year inside the secret annex, she had become very strong. She had become very bold and courageous, and she just wanted to believe and be hopeful of the fact that the war will come to an end. She simply wanted that this war will come to an end and they are going to see good days after this gruesome period comes to an end. So she'd become very indifferent. It did not matter to her whether she is alive or she is dead. She just wanted to focus on one positive thought, and that was the war coming to an end. Okay. What are the reasons that make Anne feel that Peter needs to feel loved? So what are the reasons because of which Anne Frank felt that Peter also wanted, to be loved? Obviously, we have read about this. There was a very unique incident that Anne Frank had mentioned about. There was a poster of a film star which was put up on the wall of Peter's room. This poster was gifted to him by Anne Frank herself. But on being asked, Peter had told Anne that he would actually talk to the people who were there in the poster. Now, when you end up talking to somebody who's there in the poster, that means somebody who is non-living, somebody who does not exist in reality. That simply means you are very lonely, that you are looking up to somebody or something that does not exist in the true sense. So that is why she felt that Peter also was like her, who felt lonely and who wanted to be loved, who wanted people to be gentle to him, to sympathize with him. What do the children see from the attic and how does it make them feel? So, on 23rd of February 1944, Anne Frank had written that the children would actually look at the blue sky, the birds that were chirping, the beautiful, moon that they could see from inside the window. Now, the only problem was, yes, it did make her feel very happy. She felt very relaxed. She felt very calm. She felt braver after she had seen that. But the problem was, as I told, that they had to see outside the window, which, with dirty window panes and dirty cut curtains. So the view to this beautiful sky was not clear to them. What are the similarities between Anne and Peter, and do you think these reasons contribute to them becoming closer? Now, when I talk about similarities between Anne and Peter, obviously, now what are the similarities that we think was there? A, they both felt lonely and did not have a friend they could talk to and share their feelings with. And second and most important, both of them did not have a mother. Now, did not have a mother does not mean literally did not have a mother. It simply meant that although they had mothers, but they were not very emotionally connected, very emotionally attached to their mothers. And that is why they felt lonely almost all the time. What caused the residents to be nervous? Okay, there's the second part of this question, number 21 as well. It says, do you think these reasons contribute to them becoming closer? Do you think these were the reasons because of which Anne Frank and Peter got so close to each other? Yes, I believe that these were actually the reasons. They were both like-minded when it comes to being lonely, needing a friend, not having a mother who was understanding and supportive. And that is why they both looked up to each other when they needed a friend. And since they started meeting regularly after that, so their friendship also grew. So question number 22 says, what caused the residents to be nervous? So what caused the residents to be nervous? What had happened on the 10th of March that made the residents feel so nervous? So the residents were nervous because of the regular shooting, the gunshots they could hear, and the bombing raids. So because of the regular shooting, the regular bombing raids that were there, the residents felt so nervous. They did not feel very happy. They felt very uncomfortable and were in constant fear throughout. Who is Mr. M? What has happened to him? So who is Mr. M and what has happened to him? Mr. M was the one who would sell them potatoes, butter and jam, and what had happened to him? So yes, he was the person who was very helpful, but he got arrested by the authorities. And because Mr. M got arrested, there was a lot of problem that these people faced with respect to arranging the food for themselves. How are the residents affected by the arrest of their helpers? Now, first of all, who all were their helpers? Mr. M. We just read that Mr. M was arrested on the 14th of March. Then there was Mr. Coupuis. Mr. Coupuis was not feeling well. He had that severe stomach operation. So, because of Mr. Coupuis, because of Mr. M, obviously, there was a lot of problem that these people faced. They did not have any food, they did not have any oil or butter, no fat basically that they had used. So no food, no oil, no fat that they had. How do you think Anne helps Peter by being cheerful? Why is this important? So how did Anne help Peter by being cheerful? So how did she help him in being cheerful? By giving him the confidence that, things are going to be okay one day. She herself would speak a lot. She herself would talk a lot and always seem to be cheerful and happy and laughing around all the time. And this was important because there were moments inside the secret annex when people felt very depressed. They felt highly disappointed with the kind of life that they were leading, and obviously, they had bad, ill thoughts going on in their mind all the time. So these, ways followed by Anne Frank were very helpful for Peter and at times for the others as well. If you remember, in the later days of her diary, she had written that she could actually be a clown to the other people and make them laugh the whole day. How has Anne and Peter's relationship changed from 1942 to now? So, yes, we've read that their relationship underwent a drastic transformation. There were multiple changes that, they had seen. When we talk about their changing relation, in the initial days, Anne Frank did not find Peter to be interesting. She thought that Peter was very shy and she did not like Peter at all. But in the later stages, by the end of her term inside the secret annex, she looked at Peter as a friend. She would go to Peter every day. There were times when she actually felt that she could not live a day, the day when she does not meet Peter, that was a hard day for her. So from being having no interest to being highly interested and close to Peter was the transformation that Anne Frank went through. Okay. How does it help the residents of the annex that the black market ration book men are out of prison? So, when these black market ration book men, so these people who were helping them to obtain the food from the black market, they were first arrested but then they were released. So, how did this help the secret annex residents? It did help them because one thing that they got affected with the most, they started getting food. What are the difficulties that people have to face during a war? So, what were the difficulties that the people had to face during the war? Obviously, there were multiple difficulties that we saw in this story. The essential goods, the most basic requirements, they were missing. The people did not get them. The people would actually stand in line. They would see people standing in huge lines to get the most essential things required by them. They would stand in lines to buy vegetables. The doctors could not visit their patients. The people could not leave the house for even 5 minutes because this was the fear that once they will leave the house, some burglar will enter and the things from their house will get stolen. And obviously, the men were fighting with each other to get food. What is the tone of this entry? Is Anne angry, sad, or matter of fact, and why? Now, I would see that Anne was obviously sad when she had mentioned about the problems that she saw the Jews were facing because of the World War II. But then, when she had accepted the situation lately, when she had started believing that, she and the others can survive this war, that there is going to be a good and positive future that lies ahead of them, that they might be able to go to the school as well. So, all the facts that she stated, I would say, they were stated by her in a matter of fact way. So, yes, she was sad because the situation of Jews was such, but whatever things she had mentioned about in her diary entry were very practical and matter of fact. Why do you think the residents of the secret annex continued to celebrate birthdays even in hiding? Now, celebrating somebody's birthday is obviously a source of joy and happiness and cheerfulness for people. So these people of the secret annex, they continued to celebrate each other's birthdays because that was the only source of joy. That was their only source of happiness in that adverse situation. So they just wanted that they would feel light, they would feel happy, and moreover, celebrating your birthday, another year when is added to your life, is a feeling of being grateful for that. We are alive, we should be grateful to God for that. Have Anne's feelings about being in hiding changed? How and why? So, do you think that Anne Frank's feelings about being in the hiding, being in secret annex changed? How and why? Yes, they have changed. She was a pessimistic person, and now she'd become an optimistic person by the end of the day. We have seen that she became good friends with Peter. She considered herself to be wiser now and she wanted to make things okay with her mother. Okay, we have read that she did not have a very good relationship with her mother, but she wanted it to be okay. She wanted to understand her mother. She wanted her mother to understand her. So these are all the mental growth that she was going through at that time. So yes, she has changed and I have told you why and how. What are the two rare moments of excitement about food for the residents? So what were the two moments of excitement for the people of Secret Annex? One, when they would get soup. Just a second. Yes. So when they would get soup and the little packages of other things with their lunch. This was the first moment of excitement, and the second one was when they would get sausage and jam with their bread. How is life in the outside world? Do you think the people inside the annex are better? Yes, I certainly feel so. In the outside world, we have read that there were people who did not even have a shelter, they did not have a roof to live under. They could be seen begging on the streets for a piece of bread. They were in constant fear of being caught. They were being tortured by one person or the other, and they were only waiting for death to come to them. On the other hand, the people living in secret annex were fortunate enough to have a shelter. They were fortunate enough to have food, although that was rotten food, as she has complained about frequently. So although it was a rotten food, but still they were, they had food, so they were happy with that. And therefore, the difference existed between the lives of the people who lived inside as well as outside the annex. Do you think people's perception of the Jews is right? What other reason could cause them to think like that? So, do you think the way people believed or thought about Jews, it was right? No. Hatred, disliking somebody, considering somebody to be not equal to you is never right. But what were the reasons that, led them to think about it? So this was all because of the mental, block that was created by the Nazi authorities, by the Nazi government in the minds and the hearts of the people. As I had told you earlier, the Nazis had divided the entire population of Europe in two broad categories, Jews and non-Jews. So Jews were altogether separated from the entire population, and that is why people had different opinions about them. What are Anne's feelings when the invasion finally takes place? So the invasion, the D-Day, so when the invasion finally takes place, how did Anne Frank feel? She was obviously very happy, she was thrilled, she was excited, and she was hopeful that now probably the day is not far when the World War II will come to an end. She also thought that she might be able to go back to her school in either September or October. What does Anne describe as being the best medicine and why? So what was the best medicine according to Anne Frank? The nature. According to her, looking at the sky, looking at the clouds, the moon, the stars, everything made her feel very calm. And because of this calmness, she found herself to be ready. She thought that she was ready to, face all the problems that she had in her life. Who are the two Annes? So, who are the two Annes who are mentioned in this chapter? So, the two Annes, the first was the Anne who wanted to be loved, who was gentle. And the second Anne was the one who was always brave, who was very confident, and who spoke what she wanted. So these two different Annes, Anne Frank has herself talked about in this chapter, in this autobiography of hers. So my dear students, we are going to pause here. We are through with the discussion of all the short questions. Now in my next lecture and my last video, I am going to explain and discuss with you the long answers that we have. So I'll see you all now in my next lecture.